What if I told you there is a plant with more protein than beef? It doubles in size every 2 days. It needs no soil, no fertilizer, no farm. For centuries, communities across Asia scooped it from ponds and ate it fresh. It fed families through drought and famine when fields turned to dust. Then modern agriculture looked at it, shrugged, and walked away. Not because it failed, because it grew too easily. Because no one could patent a pond. Because a plant that feeds itself and multiplies for free has no place in a system built on scarcity. And so it was forgotten. The reveal. Duckweed. Its name is duckweed. In grocery stores and wellness aisles, you may find it labeled as water lentils. Across Southeast Asia, from Thailand to Vietnam to Laos to Myanmar, it has floated on ponds and paddies for centuries. Locals call it by dozens of names in dozens of dialects. They scoop it fresh and toss it into soups, stir-fries, omelets, and curries. It is not exotic. It is not rare. It is one of the smallest flowering plants on Earth, a few millimeters wide, often mistaken for algae or pond scum by those who do not know better. But beneath that humble appearance lies a nutritional density that rivals any crop humans have ever cultivated. You have seen it before. Every still pond, every forgotten irrigation ditch, every neglected water tank in the tropics. That bright green blanket spreading across the surface is not waste. It is not pollution. It is food. Real food. Complete food. Not a supplement manufactured in a factory. Not a powder sealed in plastic. Not a capsule shipped across oceans. Just a living plant that floats on the water and waits. For hands willing to reach down. For mouths willing to taste what the modern world dismissed as nothing more than a nuisance. Why the leaves were not the prize. The whole plant was. Most crops divide themselves. The fruit is eaten, the stem discarded, the husk thrown away. We harvest wheat for the grain and burn the stalk. We peel oranges and toss the rind. Waste is built into the system. But duckweed follows a different logic. There is no separation, no byproduct, no leftover. The entire organism is the harvest. Every cell of every frond carries protein, fiber, and nutrients. You do not peel duckweed. You do not process it. You lift it from the water and eat it whole. A living protein mat that regenerates within days, sometimes within hours. No replanting required, no tilling, no waiting for seasons to turn. You harvest today. Tomorrow it has already begun to regrow. The pond never empties. It simply refills itself. This is not agriculture. This is regeneration. A cycle so efficient, so self-sustaining, that it makes modern farming look like a complicated workaround for something nature solved long ago. One harvest leads to the next, without pause, without cost, without end. The whole plant was always the prize. Breaking the nutrition claims down. Now let the numbers speak. Duckweed, depending on species and growing conditions, contains up to 40 to 45% protein by dry weight. That places it alongside soy and above most legumes. But quantity alone is not the measure. Quality matters more. Duckweed delivers a complete amino acid profile. All 9 essential amino acids the human body cannot produce on its own, the same profile found in eggs and meat. This is rare among plants. Most require combining grains and legumes to achieve completeness. Duckweed does it alone. Add to this iron levels comparable to spinach and other leafy greens, plus omega-3 fatty acids, typically found in fish and flaxseed. Add trace minerals, B vitamins, and in some species analogs of B12, the nutrient vegans struggle most to obtain from plants. All this in a tiny frond no bigger than a grain of rice. Not engineered in a lab, not fortified in a factory. Just a floating plant you could scoop by hand from a backyard pond. The nutrition was always there. We simply never looked down. a food that grew faster than hunger. Speed is where duckweed breaks the rules. Under optimal conditions, with warm water, sunlight, and nutrients, duckweed can double its biomass in as little as 16 to 48 hours. Read that again. Double. Not grow slightly, not inch forward. Double. Compare that to rice, which takes 4 to 6 months from seed to harvest. Compare it to soybeans, which need 3 to 5 months of careful cultivation. Compare it to cattle, which require 18 months to reach slaughter weight. Duckweed outpaces them all by orders of magnitude. In regions where hunger follows seasons, where dry spells wipe out crops and leave families with nothing, a pond covered in duckweed meant daily insurance. You did not wait for harvest season. You harvested every day. If drought killed the fields, the pond remained. If pests devoured the grain, the water still produced. A protein source that multiplied faster than hunger could spread was not a luxury. It was survival. It was the answer growing quietly on the surface while the world searched everywhere else. Why duckweed never became a global staple. If duckweed is so efficient, why did the world ignore it? The answer lies not in the plant, but in the systems we built around food. Harvesting duckweed is wet, messy, and labor-intensive. You cannot run a combine across a pond. You cannot store fresh duckweed in a grain silo for months. It spoils within hours if left in the sun. It resists the very processes industrial agriculture was designed to perform. Tractors need soil. Factories need dry commodities. Refrigerated trucks need stability and shelf life. Duckweed offered none of these. It demanded adaptation, not extraction. And modern food systems do not adapt. They standardize. They optimize for what already fits the machines, the supply chains, the profit models. Crops that require machinery, chemicals, and transport infrastructure received funding, research, and policy support. Crops that grew freely in ponds did not. There was no profit margin in teaching families to scoop protein from their own backyard water. There was no venture capital waiting to invest in something that could not be scaled through factories. The economics pointed elsewhere. And so duckweed, despite outperforming nearly every staple, remained invisible. Not because it failed, but because success looked different than the system could recognize. How supplements and powders replaced the pond. The plant survived, but not in the form nature intended. Instead of communities harvesting fresh duckweed from local ponds, corporations found a way to control it. They built closed bioreactor systems and patented growing methods. They dried the fronds into powder, stripped away the living context, and rebranded the result as water lentil protein, or lentine. Now it appears on shelves beside whey and pea isolates, premium-priced, sleekly packaged, marketed to athletes and vegans searching for clean protein. The irony runs deep. A plant that once fed villages for free now costs $15 per pound in powdered form. A food that needed no processing is now processed. A crop that resisted ownership now carries trademarks. The supplement industry found a way to bottle abundance and sell it back as scarcity. And consumers, unaware that this powder was once a living mat floating on any warm pond, pay without question. The plant made it into the modern world, but only after becoming a product. Long before scientists measured its amino acids, communities already knew. In Thailand, villagers harvested duckweed as a vegetable called khai nam. In Laos, it appeared in soups alongside fish and herbs. In parts of Africa, farmers fed it to livestock and used pond residue as fertilizer, closing the nutrient loop without chemicals. This was integrated knowledge, passed through generations, embedded in daily practice. But when modern agriculture took shape, it looked elsewhere. SOY received billions in research funding. Corn became the backbone of subsidies and trade policy. Livestock systems expanded across continents. These crops could be owned, traded, patented, exported. A pond plant that multiplied without permission and required no corporate input attracted no interest. Indigenous and rural knowledge was dismissed as primitive. Journals overlooked it. Studies were underfunded. What could not generate intellectual property had no place in the research economy. The wisdom was never lost. It was simply never asked for. And now, decades later, science is rediscovering what grandmothers in villages always knew. Why duckweed is quietly returning today. The world has changed. Climate projections grow darker each year. Arable land shrinks as populations rise and cities expand. Water scarcity threatens traditional agriculture on every continent. And suddenly, the math that dismissed duckweed no longer holds. Researchers from Israel to Thailand to the Netherlands are testing controlled pond systems and vertical bioreactors that produce protein with a fraction of the land and water required by soy or cattle. Urban planners explore rooftop tanks and basement growing systems. Humanitarian organizations investigate duckweed as emergency nutrition in refugee camps and disaster zones. Backyard growers experiment with home-scale ponds, harvesting weekly for salads, smoothies, and stir-fries. The plant that could not fit industrial agriculture may be perfectly suited for its collapse. It needs no soil. It tolerates poor water quality that would kill other crops. It thrives in heat that wilts lettuce. It requires no fertilizer if nutrients cycle properly through the system. In a future of scarcity and unpredictability, duckweed offers what few crops can: daily regeneration, complete nutrition, mathematical simplicity. The quiet return has already begun. Not in boardrooms or policy halls, but in ponds, tanks, and buckets around the world. One frond at a time. The protein we stepped over duckweed did not fail. It simply floated in a world that walked on land. A super protein that grows for free remained invisible because no one could own the pond. It could not be patented, monopolized, or made dependent on purchased inputs year after year. And in a system built around control, a plant that offered abundance without chains became a threat to the model itself. So it was ignored, labeled primitive, dismissed as peasant food, left to spread across forgotten waters while billions were spent engineering inferior alternatives in laboratories and factories. But the pond does not forget. The fronds still multiply. The protein still waits. The future of food may not emerge from factories or feedlots. It may not require genetic modification or billion-dollar research grants. It might already be floating quietly on the water, just beneath the surface, doing what it has done for millions of years. Feeding without asking, growing without stopping, offering everything, asking nothing in return. All it requires is that we look down and remember what was always there. The answer was never hidden. It was simply overlooked. Resilience floating in the stillness, a gift we forgot to accept.